Hello, hello. Welcome to Heart and Mind. I'm Dr. Dina McMillan, and we have a really exciting show for you today. Ooh, I know everyone I know that I talk to has had this problem. Are you stuck in the same arguments? So, we're going to talk about this today, and we're here every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I would suggest you do this a few days after we do this live stream. We have the recordings available on Daily Clout. I usually post it on my X feed. So if you go to at Dr. Dina1 on X, you'll be able to find the full episode. You'll be able to find it on Rumble. And it's something, if the information is important to you, I would suggest you look at the recording as well. It's very tough to learn anything if you encounter it only once, even if you find it interesting. It also gives you an opportunity to share this information with someone who's going through a tough time. I know, and you know too, a lot of people, if you tell them, they won't listen. If they hear it from someone else, they just might. So please join me every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I am going to be joined again by my friend in Australia, Melinda. She's in Queensland. So it is 11 a.m. in Queensland, 12 p.m. in Sydney and Melbourne. So it's 12 noon there on Wednesday. So they're a day ahead. So social psychology, the reason you see pictures, a lot of people who have shows like this sit and talk to you and they'll show you the odd video or picture or something. I actually have images of what I'm discussing, and there's a reason that I do that, because social psychology, which is studies and does experiments in all these areas, the evil science, because we study indoctrination and brainwashing, and we also look at how can we do it better. It's a really scary science, but it also teaches us that if we see an image with a message, we're more likely to remember the information. And when we're doing this, I really want you all to remember the information. So that's the reason I take the time to put all my little cute pictures. Now, here is something you should also remember and you should get to know. All of us have gone through a lot. I was just speaking with someone right before the show about how much we've all gone through in the last 5 years. Now, you can support Daily Clout, the host of this show, and their historic work by ordering the Pfizer papers on Amazon. A lot of us were really curious about what Pfizer was up to. And Dr. Naomi Wolf and her team did some research to find out exactly what they were up to, the kind of information they wanted to hide for 75 years. Instead, Naomi Wolf, Amy Kelly put this information together and made it available for you. So it's two things. You find out invaluable information that can keep you and your family safe, and you continue to support Daily Clout so we can bring interesting knowledge, information, and insights to the world. Now, this episode today, any of you get stuck in the same arguments? Every time you tell yourself, I am not going to let this person push my buttons, or I am not going to get mad about this. Every time you look up, you've got the same argument and again. Yeah. Something we're going to talk about today, so stay with me. Ashish Kumar Jha, former Biden administration COVID-19 response coordinator, recently gave a chilling speech at the University of Michigan School of Public Health. Jha warned of a new age of pandemics fueled by bioweapons development and natural threats. He called for massive investments in vaccines against pathogens that don't even exist yet and urged a war against so-called misinformation. But the question we need to ask is, who's working on bioweapons and how many labs are there globally? Yes, Trump got the win, but bad things are still lurking in the background. Being prepared is the best defense. The wellness company's contagion emergency kit, engineered by Dr. Peter McCullough and his medical board, includes 5 critical life-saving medications like ivermectin, Tamiflu, a nebulizer, and hydroxychloroquine. Every household can now have access to these hard-to-get medications minus the red tape. It's simple. Fill out a digital intake form and your kit arrives in 1 to 2 weeks. Don't wait until the deep state puts their plans into action. Stay ready for the unexpected. Head to dailycloudhealth.com and use the code DailyCloud to save $32 off, plus free shipping. Kits are only available to U.S. residents. So we're back. What are we looking at specifically? When I first thought about this topic, it was suggested to me, and it's a good suggestion because everyone I know has this problem. I have a couple of siblings that I have this problem with. So I thought about it. Okay, what can we do? Let's talk about some general reasons, some internal reasons, some reasons you keep having the same argument with someone. External reasons. They're the one that starts the fight. What about the situations where both of you are at fault? And then, of course, always on Heart and Mind, the last part is always about solutions. So at the end of the show, we're also going to talk about some simple, practical, effective tips to break the cycle. Now let's look at reason 1, general reason 1, the problem isn't resolved. Now I know all of you have seen this picture, and some people probably think it's funny. I can tell you though, if you're with somebody, if you have a partner who's always looking admiringly and with lust in their hearts at other people, it's excruciatingly painful. You never feel like you're enough. You wonder, if I weren't here, would looking be enough, or would they actually pursue that person and try to have a date with them or try to sleep with them? It creates enormous insecurity. It's not funny. So one of the basic reasons that people keep having the same argument is that the bad behavior doesn't change. Increased tariffs on our trade partners, tax cuts, and regulation changes. Learn why gold is a viable diversification tactic now more than ever. Birch Gold, the only gold company I trust, is releasing their ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. To get your free copy along with Birch Gold's free information kit on gold, text Daily Clout to the number 989898. Here's the facts. The national debt continues to increase. Our interest payments on the national debt also continue to increase. Gold is still your hedge against a weakened dollar. And Birch Gold is still the company I trust to help me convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. You should too. Text Daily Clout to 989898 for your free copy of the Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump era. There's no obligation, only information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of happy customers, including me, you too can trust Birch Gold. Text Daily Clout to the number 989898 today. So while you're thinking about that, what's another reason that people keep having the same problems over and over again? The fights keep going again and again and again. Another reason why the problem is not resolved is that the person at fault won't accept responsibility. And in fact, I've seen a lot of cases, a lot of couples I've spoken with, a lot of families I've spoken with. The person who is causing the issue that's leading to the arguments and the conflict not only won't take responsibility, they blame the other person. They blame the other party. They blame the person who's being hurt for what they're doing. Now, how is that situation ever going to get better? We're going to talk about it in a few minutes. Another reason, the forgiveness isn't genuine. Now, we had some shows a few episodes back, so you can look those up if you are really interested in, where we talked about forgiveness, what it really means, what it doesn't mean, when you should forgive. But sometimes the forgiveness is only superficial. You really want to forgive this person. You feel like you should, but you haven't really forgiven them. So the trust isn't restored. So it's really easy for you to pop back into that anxiousness, that anxiety, that defensiveness that can lead to arguments. Here's another general reason that what you're arguing about, the conflict you're having, covers a deeper issue. If you're having arguments, and especially the same argument with somebody over and over again, it deserves to be explored, because it is like taking a shovel and continuously digging out dirt. The pain, the problems are going to get deeper and deeper and deeper if you don't figure out what's really driving this issue. Think about that for a second. And I want you to take a second and just think, is there anybody in your life that you keep having the same argument with over and over again? Can you believe it? We're well into 2025 already. How are your New Year's resolutions going? One of my top resolutions was to focus on my well-being. And we all know one of the foundations of well-being is a good night's sleep. So if I could do just one thing to improve my sleep and overall well-being, it's taking the number one mineral for that, which also helps me with focus, stress levels, and mood regulation during the day. Yes, I'm talking about magnesium. Specifically, I'm talking about the Magnesium Breakthrough by Bioptimizers. The 7 different forms of magnesium in this supplement are involved in over 600 different biochemical reactions in the body. Pretty much every function in your body gets upgraded when you take magnesium, from the quality of your sleep to your brain function, from metabolism to stress levels. And let's face it, even if your 2025 resolution wasn't to focus on your health as it was mine, are you really going to be able to achieve all those goals without quality sleep and stress management support? You really think so? So do yourself a favor and make Magnesium Breakthrough part of your daily routine this year, so you can get the vitality you need to conquer your dreams. Go to bioptimizers.com/dailyclout now and enter the promo code dailyclout to get 10% off any order. And if you subscribe, not only will you get amazing discounts and free gifts, you'll make sure your monthly supply is guaranteed. Again, that's bioptimizers.com/dailyclout and use the promo code dailyclout. So what do you think about the first 2 reasons? Huh? You think about those? Okay, reason number 3, people keep having the same fight. Expectations on either side or both could be unrealistic. Someone could want too much. The other person could have a problem, or it could be just not realistic that you never do or they never do. Or another problem I see a lot, expectations of immediate transformation. If somebody's been doing something for a while, if an issue is longstanding, or even if a problem is deeply embedded, it takes work and time to eradicate it. You can't expect it to immediately just disappear. And sometimes the problem is that one or both parties expect perfection. Now, I'm not saying this gives you an excuse for doing a poor job. As we go through and we get really meaty, when Melinda Richards joins me and we start getting into this, and when you join me, sign in on X, on Facebook, give me your opinion. When we get really into the meat of this, we're going to talk about the way that somebody saying, I'm going to change this is going to get better, can be another type of manipulation. So it's a delicate balance between realistic expectations and not allowing yourself or the other person to get away with something. Now, here's another reason why you may be arguing a lot. You're holding a grudge. Hopefully you're not also holding a voodoo doll with pins in it, but I thought this image was funny. Okay. Grudges are heavy. Grudges make acid go in your stomach and in your digestive tract. Grudges are painful. But if you're holding a grudge against somebody, once again, which means you have not forgiven them, not in your heart, you haven't forgiven them, it's very likely you're going to continue to argue about the same things over and over again. Here's another reason. You're still in pain. Maybe you're arguing with this person because whatever they did to you still hurts. And because you're in pain, you want them to feel pain too. Okay, let's be honest. Sometimes we feel like that. If that's the case, you may be starting fights with them a lot because you want them to be uncomfortable too. You don't want to just be uncomfortable by yourself. Think about that. Is there anybody you've done that with? Are you ready to move easily and independently without pain or stiffness holding you back? Do you want to look in the mirror and see a plump, hydrated glow instead of more fine lines and wrinkles? Discover Native Path Collagen, made with only type 1 and type 3 collagen fibers, the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body. Found in your cartilage, bones, skin, hair, nails, and gut, types 1 and 3 provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Native Path Collagen is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners. Plus, it's third-party tested for heavy metals, ensuring purity and safety. Completely flavorless, Native Path Collagen can be added to anything: coffee, smoothies, oatmeal, you name it. Its peptide formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes perfectly without clumping. And the best part, Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, including me and the women at my salon, 8,000 5-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a trusted choice. Plus, they offer an 800 number for any questions about usage, recipes, or ingredients, and you'll speak to a real person who's ready to help you. Join their private Facebook community to share success stories, recipes, and support each other on this journey called life. So are you ready? Visit getnativepath.com/dailyclout and start your transformation today. That's GETNATIVEPATH.com/DAILYCLOUT. Now, the third reason why you may be starting arguments with someone, you have a deep dissatisfaction with the other person. So you're noticing every flaw, everything they do wrong becomes the worst thing ever. Now, before I'm going to add Melinda Richards to our studio, and anybody else, if you want to come along, you want to talk, please let me know. I can have up to 10 people in the studio with me. So if anybody wants to be on the show, you want to talk about these issues, I would say this before Melinda comes on. We're seeing the world change in America faster than I ever thought possible. I have never seen anybody move as fast and decisively as Donald Trump and his administration. Now, it sets up a feeling of excitement and anticipation and motivation for all of us to improve our lives. Well, guess what? If you want to improve your life, let's get rid of the baggage. And one of the things that will keep you from doing it is if you're holding on to negative emotion, if you're fighting with people, if you're doing all this while you're paying attention over there, anybody that has let go of that stuff, that's moved on, that pays attention to the solutions we have at the end and has actually put them in place, is going to be poised for the new opportunities that are going to be so widespread throughout society due to what's going on. This is a really exciting time. So, Melinda Richards is an influencer, successful author, former talk show host, and you know, she's my friend, and I have her on a lot because she's willing to come on and talk with us about things. And we have a comment before I bring her on. We have a comment from Nettie Slavey that says, just say no to all vaccines. Well, I think we're all on the same page about that. Welcome, Melinda. What do you think about what we're talking about so far?
Oh, my goodness me. The question should be, does anyone not have this in their life rather than does anyone have it in their life? I mean, don't we all have that person that we just go around in circles with? Whether it's family or even a couple of maybe really close friends, and there's now undiscussables sometimes with people because you just can't resolve a situation. It's just, surely everybody has this in their life, and I'm loving your reasons why it can happen. The last one there about someone being really dissatisfied with you, that's kind of scary. That's a scary one.
This is first I'm going with why you're arguing with this person. So this is an argument that you start. Then we're going to look at why they're arguing with you. And then I'm going to talk about some reasons that both of you have for arguing with each other, including the fact that some people are just like that, you know? But we're going to talk about the reasons, and then we're going to always talk about what you can do about it, because I don't ever like to leave people hanging. And I think just say no to all vaccines is a fantastic idea. You have to be really careful about things. I think the Daily Clout, I have an extremely intelligent, clued in audience. The fact that people come here to make sure that they have an effective shield against manipulation, and that they are actively working on improving their relationships, including their relationships with themselves, all the admiration in the world for you people. But here's another one. When you are dissatisfied with somebody, you're going to notice every flaw. Just like when you're first in love or in like with somebody, you don't notice any of the flaws. You may be getting to a point where you're picking on them because you don't like them. Here's another reason that people don't often think about. You feel vulnerable. When you feel vulnerable to someone, you may start an argument because you're just defensive, because you're thinking all these bad things in your head about how this person feels about you. So you're starting arguments with them. And of course, if you think of anything else, Melinda or audience, go into the comments. You can sign in on any of the places that have live streams. So go on my X feed, go on the Daily Cloud X feed, go on Rumble, go on Facebook, the Daily Clout page on Facebook, and you can sign in and send me your comments. Here's another one, Twisted Love Map. Now, Melinda and I discussed this when I told her I was doing this topic, that I actually had a partner like this, where I worried when I got involved with him, because I worried that all of his serious romantic partners had been divas, the high drama women that throw things and, oh, you're the worst person in the world. I hate you. I'm going to kill you. Show up at your work unexpectedly, make a scene.
Ooh.
And I was like, I don't act like that. I mean, even arguments, I told you, I took my permission back to even call somebody a name or yell at them. So he could tell you, I never yelled at him, no matter how angry. I would talk to him about it. And I worried. And I think ultimately, I really do think that's what broke us up. He didn't feel like I cared about him because I wasn't throwing temper tantrums. And his love map, his model of what a loving relationship was, included all that drama. So any examples here, Melinda, about this?
Listening to what you're saying today, I sort of feel like if we're stuck in a relationship that isn't working and we're arguing all the time, there's this sort of level, isn't there, with a lot of the things that you're mentioning today? And I think a question comes out, at which level are you at? Are you at a level where you can't tolerate it anymore? Or are you at a level where you think that this argument that you're turning around is just not important? And I think asking ourselves, is this important? Is this important? And if it is, then you have to make some really big decisions. But if it isn't important, if you can sit down and really say to yourself, do you know what? We're just arguing for argument's sake. This particular topic that we go around in circles on is not important to me. And so you can just kind of cast it aside. And I think that a lot of these examples about why we argue, I think all of us, to be better people, have to look in the mirror and go, is this important to me? Because if it is, great, deal with it. If not, don't argue about it. Just say, yeah, great, agree to disagree and move on, but it's that level of importance, I think,
But before we can fix anything, we have to, you notice I always start with the self, because it's so easy. As I said, spending too much time in hair salons, one of the things I noticed, that is like women 101. If a guy is nice and quiet and can sneak into a hair salon and just sit there, those questions that men have, I don't understand women, would just disappear, because you'd know exactly how we think. But one of the things I noticed over the years is that women can pick out every single flaw in the guy that they're with or were with or who broke their heart. But it is so rare for any kind of self-reflection to go on.
Yes.
And I don't see anybody ever getting fixed if you don't stop and say, what do I do? So as I said, we have just two more, but I wanted to look at why people keep starting arguments with someone. Sometimes it's a fixed action pattern. Sometimes you just get into the habit of arguing all the time. Now, that's not as bad as the one before, where you have actually a twisted love map, where you, unless it's all this negative emotion, you don't feel like if there's passion or love. That requires therapy. You can actually fix this one as a little bit easier. Another one is you don't have good self-soothing measures. So if you're still annoyed with them, if they do it again, if anything happens, it really that bothers you, you start an argument because you don't know how to calm yourself down. And Nettie, by the way, is sending some interesting comments. So if anybody's able to get to the comments, look at the stuff she's talking about. She's talking about yesterday, two ladies on Cafe Lockdown had an interesting conversation, affairs in the marriage, and they're both from Australia. She was asking about Melinda. Yes, Melinda's Australian. So Nettie, you can come on the show if you'd like to. You can come in the studio. You can actually speak. You don't have to just type. And that goes for the rest of you. Anybody want to come in and actually have some comments, you're more than welcome. Not having self-soothing measures. If something triggers an insecurity, if something triggers a bad behavior, if the person repeats a bad behavior, like that picture with the guy, turning around and whistling at the woman, and he does it again, if you don't have a way to calm yourself down, you're going to get mad and the argument's going to start again. So having self-soothing measures is invaluable. And now I want to just cover really quickly so that we have time to talk. I want to quickly cover why they're arguing with you. Okay, if they start the argument, they're just like picking at you and, they haven't forgiven you. Maybe you've done something and they told you they forgave you and they haven't. Now, it doesn't mean they're lying. They may believe they have, because you'll notice we had that thing too, where you like, my beliefs say I'm supposed to forgive and I want to forgive and move on, but you haven't really. The pain of your actions may still be wrong. So you might need some real patience with somebody. When you've hurt them, they need time to heal. You can't expect everything to go back to point zero right away. They may still be a little raw. They may be a little cantankerous. Sometimes, and this harkens to what Nettie said about cafe lockdown, I've seen a lot of men especially start a lot of arguments with their partners because they want out of the relationship, either their girlfriend or their wife. So they pick fights to make the split easier, because then they can say, she's such a, fill in the expletive, because they're arguing all the time. They may be arguing with you because you're making them feel vulnerable. Maybe they're not quite sure you love them and like the way they love you. And so they're arguing with you because they're hurt, and that's how they express it. Or they could have a twisted love map, like what I had. Now, he wasn't necessarily starting arguments all the time. I disappointed him when we argued, because I would take a deep breath and say, look, I have never said something when I was angry that I didn't regret later. So let me just go walk around the block and calm myself, and then we can talk about it. And while superficially, like most guys, he's like, oh, good, a woman that's not throwing a temper tantrum. In his heart, in the subconscious mind, his embedded mind, his reptilian brain, that meant I didn't really care. And that was unfortunate, because I did. But I just don't like negative drama. Another reason somebody may be arguing with you, avoiding responsibility. If they can start an argument, how often have you argued with somebody? Melinda, Nettie, tell me, how often have you argued with somebody and then the argument switches to something completely different than what it started on? So you start talking about the fact that they don't put the toilet seat down, and then you end up arguing, why don't you ever do the grocery shopping, or how come you don't take care of the kid?
It actually then escalates and goes into a number of other grievances that people might have been actually holding on to. And then when you start to argue, a few of these things come out.
All the other stuff comes out.
Yeah, but also, and it's unfair and it shouldn't happen, but invariably it really does. And it's a very, very hard cycle not to get into and to break that.
Well, because my job is dealing with excessive predators and manipulators, a lot of them will have admitted they will start an argument because it's a way of switching things up. So while they don't want her to ask about, I am so tired of you going out at night, not telling me where you're going, or looking at my phone too much, or not, whatever it is, legitimate concern. They start an argument about it. They end up switching it to something else. And that first issue never gets resolved. So it's a way of actually turning the attention away from something that they don't really want to talk about. So I'm not saying everyone does this, but it is something you have to be aware of. And also, a lot of people, especially you guys, I like support for mental health for guys. I like support for teaching things to men in a very masculine way without emasculating you and making you girls. Okay, that is not my goal. I do not want to make men feminine, but it is important for you to have a way of handling discomfort and arguments or disagreements so you can calm yourself down so it doesn't escalate. And for all the women listening, if a guy says, I am so angry, I need to go for a walk, or I'm going for a drive, let him go. Because sometimes I've seen them, don't you go anywhere. We're going to talk about this. Oh my God, no. Oh, Nettie, you know you have to come on the show. She's telling me some interesting stuff. She says the person I married lied on the first date. He asked if he had a girlfriend. He said no. But he did. Oh,
I mean,
girl, we can talk about some of the stuff that people have gotten up to. One of my closest girlfriends had a guy she went out with for 2 years. And while they were dating in what she thought was an exclusive relationship, he not only was dating other women, he actually married somebody else. And eventually one of his closest friends felt sorry for her and actually told her. She had no idea. We can do a whole show on deceptive people. And Nettie, yes, it is a big red flag. And send me your info if you want to be on the show. You can come in the studio like Melinda. Now, here's the issue. Let's quickly go to the issues for both people. Sometimes people argue a lot because both of them are too stubborn to change. Everybody, I'm right, you're wrong. We have to argue about this. Sometimes they just need somebody to show them how to do it differently. They need some help on the outside, somebody to actually clarify what's going on. Here's another reason I see a lot when I had my private practice. Makeup sex is hot. Okay. So people would have these horrible fights knowing later on they're going to have really hot makeup sex. But what you're doing is rewarding yourself for doing something that is destructive to your relationship. So all right, now we're in solutions. So, and again, Melinda, if there's anything you think I thought I forgot, audience, if anything I forgot, please talk about it, because I want to talk now about how you break the cycle. Just like the last example, is there a reward for fighting? I've met people who do not want to change the bad behavior. So they will continue being yelled at, because to them, being yelled at and enduring an argument is less emotionally costly than actually changing the behavior. Oh, Nettie's in Japan. Oh, we're really global today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. But yes, please do me a favor. Go on my X site. That's for all of you. Go on X. Go at Dr. Dina 1. So ADRDINA 1. And give me your details if you want to be in the studio with me and talk about this stuff. So we have to talk about people being rewarded. It's not just makeup sex. Are they getting away with something? Because sometimes the argument is instead of changing the behavior. So that in itself is a kind of reward. If you think, if like my ex-partner, if the really dramatic argument is a way of expressing love in your mind, then that's a reward as well. But please recognize constant bickering is draining. It's draining on your relationship. And if you have kids, they're witnessing this and they're normalizing this. You don't want them to wake up. It says, Nettie says, we accept the unacceptable. A favorite quote from Michael Gray Griffith. I've interviewed with him on Cafe Locked Out, by the way. Yes, our brain will normalize whatever we expose it to consistently, and so will your kids. Do you want your kids to grow up and have very unhealthy relationships where they're yelling and throwing things and stomping out and having temper tantrums all the time? But while they're small, they're crying. It makes them feel uncertain about their home. Friends and family feel very uncomfortable if they witness it. Do any of you go through this? You ever thought about that if you keep fighting? And arguments do not equal solutions. Here is a cultural norm among many ethnic women, Black women, Maori women in New Zealand that I've dealt with. They feel they're standing up for themselves if they argue with their guy. If he treats them badly and they tell him off, they have an argument, they stomp around, maybe throw a dish at his head. They're like, I don't let him just walk over me. But his behavior never is required to change. They've set no boundaries. There are no real consequences. If he's able to put up with the arguments instead of changing the behavior, he's getting away with it. And that goes, I said he, because I was speaking cultural norm, but you may know women like this, and I certainly do. I know men who put up with terrible behavior by their girlfriends and their wives. And they think they're standing up for themselves because they yell back. But the behavior never changes. It never gets any better. Here's another solution. Figure out who's starting it. Ta-da! Who's starting the arguments? Who's causing it? You or the other person? Is there a third person? I've known couples where every time the husband spends time with his best male friend, he comes back and does something that he either starts an argument or he does something that he agreed not to do because his male friend told him, oh, you don't want to be whipped. You want to show her who's boss, and encouraged him to do something he agreed not to do. So it starts a fight. What's the cause? Is it the same thing every time? Is it money? Is it promptness? Here's another cultural norm. A lot of my people have what they call work on something called colored people's time. And yes, that's a real thing. Often people from hot countries are not prompt. They have a tendency to be late, sometimes significantly late. I have a brother-in-law like this. I went to high school in Germany. My father was career military. So if I'm supposed to meet you at 3:00, I'll be there at 2:55 at the latest. I don't believe in late. So you can imagine how compatible I'd be, even as a friend, with somebody who never shows up on time. Or somebody who claims they forgot their wallet every time you guys get together as friends to go for a meal. Or brings up really hot topics that everybody gets emotional about. And you tell them, please don't bring that up. You know it's going to cause an argument. No, I lived in Gelnhausen, not Kaiser. I've been to Kaiserslautern because Nettie's having this conversation with me on the side. No, but I went in Gelnhausen. I went to Hanau High School. So I was 40 kilometers northeast of Frankfurt. So here's another one. Solution. Make a firm decision to fix the situation, not to fight about it. Now, Melinda's sitting there quietly like she's getting away with something. Melinda, have you ever been able to do this? Have you ever been able to fix a situation so you don't argue about it anymore?
I have. I've had about a 50% strike rate. But one little technique I use is, look, there's no doubt there is certainly something in my life that is going on that is a repeat, and I haven't been able to fix it. So today's topic is it's very personal, and I think it'd be very, very personal for anyone listening to this. But one little tip, and I don't know if this is going to help, but in order to stop arguing or have the same pattern of behavior, which I noticed you mentioned before, is that when my husband says something and I stop myself, I don't retort straight away, because I do say, hold on a minute, time out, I think that statement, let's just stop for a second. I think that statement might start an argument. So I've tried to kind of head it off at the pass. I've tried to sort of recognize that in this particular moment, rather than reacting or responding, I just need to stop myself. And I've been training myself to do that and go, actually, I don't agree. I think this is going to start an argument. It's the same pattern of behavior we've had in the past. I halt it, and then I actually switch it up and I say, hey, listen, do you think that you might maybe rephrase that? Or if we just look at what you just said, then maybe you didn't really quite mean it that way. Let's not have the argument. So as I said, I've got about a 50% strike rate on that one.
Well, you see here, make a firm decision to alter your course, because
yes, well, that's
one
probably
of the challenges you have is if you're not the person starting the arguments, or if the person continues to do the behavior that's causing the arguments. In either case, it takes two to argue. So
yes,
you do
exactly.
have a choice of saying, I'm just not going to fight about it anymore.
Yeah.
And another solution, remove the rewards. So don't allow anything positive to be the result of a fight. So if you have a big argument, punish yourself by no hot sex, okay? Do not let that be the way you
really?
I know, because you got to get out of the habit. You're not going to stop it if you're rewarding yourself for it. It's basic human psychology. If you reward yourself for something, you're going to repeat the behavior. Now, here's another one.
Yeah.
Work together. If the person wants to really work with you, you can select some circuit breakers to interrupt the flow into another argument. Now, the good thing is you can do this by yourself. If the other person won't do it, you can do it. You can say, okay, next time I get upset, this is what I decided to do. And it works for me. If I get upset, I stop and I just start paying attention to my breathing. I just take some deep breaths. If I'm someplace I can go for a walk, I just walk around the block. It doesn't have to be far. Just changing the environment, go out in nature. Tell the person, I don't stomp out. I say, look, I need to really calm myself and think of what the issue is and how I want to express myself. Give me a minute. I'll be back soon. And then off I go. And it actually works. You can do this by yourself. Even if the other person wants to keep arguing, unless you agree, unless you participate, they can't have an argument if you keep walking away. They can't have an argument if you refuse to get involved with them. And I want you to also think about something. Is the problem bigger than you're admitting to yourself? Is the relationship severely damaged or even over? If that's the reason for the arguments, either you think they're done with you or you feel done with them, have a real think about it. Talk about it with somebody you trust and decide what you're going to do, instead of just waiting for the last bit to fall over, the last Jenga, and you pull the Jenga thing out and everything collapses on your head. You can actually do it ahead of time. And if the person's willing, if you know what the underlying issue really is, try to see the root cause. Ask them, is this still really because you haven't forgiven me because I'm better at tennis than you are, and you felt embarrassed that I actually beat you in front of the people at the country club? Okay, whatever it happens to be, seek out the root cause. But again, this requires the active participation of the other person. And one thing I would also say, you need to decide what you will put up with. Get help if you need it. But please understand, if you're arguing with someone all the time, if you're repeatedly arguing about the same things, there is a genuine problem. If you don't deal with it, it's going to grow and get worse. If they won't fix it and address it, if it's their behavior, then you have a decision to make. Are you going to put up with a relationship where your happiness, your security, your sense of feeling safe just never occurs? It takes two people to argue, but it also takes two people to actually stay in a relationship, whether that's a friendship or anything else. You can distance yourself. Go back to the episode where we talked about the circles of intimacy. I'm not saying you necessarily have to never speak to that person again. It may just require, for your own mental health, that you push them to a further circle, that you don't have them quite so close because the close relationship is causing you pain. But don't hesitate to get help. I don't know why people hesitate so much. I know that I always look for help. Now, Melinda, comments, questions, and audience. Now, is Nettie the only person in the audience? I see other numbers here. Nobody else had the comment to make? Nobody has a suggestion or a question? Come on, share it with us.
The really big thing here, I think, Dina, is it is really what you as a person are going to put up with and what you're going to tolerate, and also being reflective at the same time. So it's a really hard thing for people to do. Arguing is so personal and it's so destructive. And if you're arguing about the same thing, I would always say to my husband, you know what, I know that we're going to argue from time to time. I absolutely know that. And I think even every single relationship, you're always going to get the odd argument here and there. But if you're arguing too much and you're arguing all the time, I think that's when, and we've talked about it, we know our limits. We know that we're going to have the occasional argument, but we've both agreed that if we get to a point where we're bickering and arguing about the same issue and it's happening all the time, we've actually both consciously agreed that we would probably just call that a day because neither of us want that. And I think that the talking and the communication has been, it's been so critical. I mean, sometimes you just don't feel like talking and sometimes you just think, but after every argument that we've had, we've talked, and 50% of the time we'll resolve the issue and it never comes up again. It's only a 50% strike rate. The other couple of things,
that's pretty good, considering what I've seen. But also another thing I would say too, when I said get help, I'm not necessarily, some people are not comfortable going to a therapist. It doesn't necessarily have to be a therapist. It could be a loved one who has some wisdom, who knows you both well, who you can trust not to go back and gossip about what you talk about. Yeah. Sometimes you'll have arguments with someone, for instance, and you're not quite sure what the real problem is. It's not necessarily something that you're just keeping secret. Sometimes you may not know. You may not know what's really driving that.
And the really interesting thing about that, Dina, is that when I have actually put some things on the table I've had a very long I'm married. I've been with my husband for 23 years now. We've been together a very long time, but I have never been afraid to suggest reasons why he might be feeling the way he's feeling. I felt like he's started an argument, and then I test and measure it. I test and measure it with him when we talk later on. I go, was it because of this? Was it because of that? And he will go, no, it wasn't that. It wasn't this. You've got the wrong end of the stick. You're not right about that. But occasionally you do hit the nail on the head. When you test and measure, the other person will sometimes go, yeah, well, that's right, because that's how I felt and that's how I feel. And it's really important because it's a breakthrough. It's information for both of you. And then you can make the call whether it's important or not, whether you want to keep going or not.
Also recognize that your understanding of what's really going on may not be immediate. So you said after we have an argument, we talk about it. Sometimes the revelation of what's really driving an argument or the real problem or why you're being so cranky or whatever, it comes when you're talking to someone else. Sometimes it'll just come in your own head as you're driving your kids to school or going grocery shopping or going for a run. You could be doing something else. So what you should do, if you keep arguing about the same point, try to really dig deep and figure out what's going on, whether it's you or the other person. Am I doing something to kind of poke that person so that I know that I make them upset? If I know that my wife wants to have the toilet seat down and I keep leaving it up, Um, am I
Oh, if
doing
it was
this on
only that
purpose?
simple.
Am I doing it on purpose just to annoy her because I don't think she should do it, or is it something else? Am I trying to get
Yeah.
attention from someone? Sometimes people will start an argument because they want attention. They're just not getting any passion from the other person. They're not getting any emotional investment from that other person. So they'll take negative emotion uh, if the only other alternative is no emotion at all.
Yeah, that's a
So
really,
that's part
really
of that
powerful point.
toxic pattern that you got to worry about.
That's a powerful point. And I think that, relationships need constant hard work. And if you get complacent and the other person feels like you're getting complacent, there's this whole energy around it. If they don't want you to be complacent, and if you feel, or if you don't want them to be complacent, you might trigger a few things just to see if the passion is still there. I think that's a very, very important point, that one there.
And I also know that often, some patterns, and please, well, I hope my audience knows me well enough to know that although there are predispositions based on sex, they are not absolutes. Okay. But there are predispositions where with men, if they are feeling ignored, they will tend to flirt with other women, where women may tend to pay attention to their friends and their kids and just, it's a different way of handling it, but the source is the same thing. Just pull away in a way that really annoys my partner. Or here's something that really bugs a lot of men: talk to your girlfriends about all the problems you have with your husband and don't tell him. I've had so many men in my office bemoaning that. Why would she tell our whole personal life to her girlfriend? And I'm listening to her on the phone and she's talking about stuff I didn't even know. So,
And that's the thing about communication, Dina. I honestly believe that, people can weather any storm, but if you only argue, I mean, you stop talking. So if your communication is only the arguing to try and resolve your situations, you're just never going to make it. It's the talking and the listening and the two-way. I really do make a very big effort to make sure that if I have one or two confidants, I never ever say anything to anyone that I haven't already discussed myself with the person that I'm not happy with, or whatever problem it might be. And the other thing too is to try not to discuss it too much, to really spend more time discussing it with the person involved, if possible.
well, I would
think that's
also caution before we, because we only have a few minutes left, I would also caution, while I said seek help and to talk to someone who's sympathetic, be very careful who that person is.
yeah, I think
If you
so.
are in a relationship, do not share your confidences with somebody who might be interested in replacing your partner. Do not have those conversations with somebody who's trying to undermine your relationship with your partner. Like what I was
Yeah,
saying about the guy whose best friend, every time he spent time with his
yeah,
best friend, the best friend was always trying to undermine his marriage and encouraging him to do things that he'd promised his wife he wouldn't do anymore. And it was causing a lot of problems in their relationship. So that's one of the benefits of having a professional, that
yeah,
they are not going back and sharing this information with anyone. They don't have a vested interest in the destruction of your relationship. So when you're getting this advice and talking to people so that you don't have arguments, please be careful whom you choose.
yes,
And
exactly. I think
Melinda's advice is also good. Don't wear people out with the problem. Spend the most time talking to the person you're having the problem with, and with a solution focus. Don't just
yes,
gripe. Try to
yes,
figure out, okay, how can we make this better? How can we stop having the same argument over and over again? If the person doesn't want to fix it, that's a signal too. That means
mm,
that your relationship with them is not a priority. And again, go back to the circles of intimacy and just push them into a further circle. You don't have to abandon them completely. Just push them to a further circle. So any other bits of advice? We have a few seconds left. We got like 30 seconds left.
You know, I think today's been amazing because who hasn't had this in their life? Who hasn't had to deal with this question of pattern of behavior and going over the same old ground? I think this is just a really big thing for all of us as individuals. And if we can nail it, if we can get through it, wow, you can get through anything because you've fixed a problem. I mean, it's a big thing, Dina. It's a really big thing in your life. It is a big thing.
And I want to thank everybody for being here. And if you need to get in touch with me, you can see my website on the screen, www.drdinamcmillan.com, or reach out to me on X. I'm always on X getting the news. And my X address is at Dr. Dina 1. So that's A, the little A symbol, and DRDINA 1 on X. And I will hopefully see you next week. Any comments, questions, future topics, please let me know. And thank you, Melinda, for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. See you soon. Bye.